how do we fix the college football playoff? Brian Smith and I are continuing on to solve that. So there are a lot of different angles. Here's the number one angle I go at first, Brian, to fix the 12-team playoff. You got to reseed in the second round. There is no team that had a worse weekend with playoff draws than Oregon. No team. Oregon is the only unbeaten in all of college football. They win the Big Ten. They're the number one overall seed. They have the toughest path to the championship game. It's not even close. There's not a close second that is comparable to the lineup of teams Oregon is likely to have to go up against. Now, college football chaos can absolutely ensue, but you look at that and their first game is going to be either Tennessee or Ohio State. Compare that to Penn State, who they just beat. Penn State gets a home game against SMU, and then in the second round, they get Boise State. That's where my mind goes first to fix the 12 team. Where do you go?
With that, I'll say that if there's zero chance it'll happen, and unfortunately, this is why they're selling tickets for all the games in advance because of travel for fans and all that. There's zero chance that's going to happen because if you announce after the games, it's less than a week for flights and stuff. It's too expensive. There's just no chance that's going to happen. I don't disagree with you. I'm just saying that's how the fans are going to look at it, and that will tick off advertisers. If you tick off advertisers,
well, I don't know that you tick off advertisers as much. If not as many people go to the game, more people are watching on TV.
No. I'm talking about the advertisers like the airlines, talking about the people that spend on hotels. All that.
If the airlines want people to travel, then don't gouge them on the prices.
Well, I mean, that part of that is the hotels do that, but like I already listened to this from somebody else and they're right. I don't have a problem with what you're saying, but that's just not going to happen. I'm just telling you, if they think there's a chance they lose 28 cents, there's no chance it'll happen. Money is the end all be all in our society.
That's just it's just unfortunate that you had Oregon fans going into that game thinking, "Hey, maybe we should lose. Let's lose." That should never exist. You should never want that as a sport, right? The reason not in the postseason structure in the NFL, it works because hey, let's tank. We want to get this quarterback that's coming out of college. You know, we want Shador, we want Cam Ward, whoever it is. That's different. You don't want to go into these games and be rewarded for losing. So it appears someone from ESPN tweeted out that contract of not reseeding is probably set for the next 2 years. Nothing is set for the playoff in 2026. So I would like to see them address that if they can. Like you gotta find a way, or maybe that's the reward for a team getting to that point is it's easier on their fans to figure out the travel and it's not as expensive because the fact that you have a legitimate disincentive to be the number one overall seed is fundamentally wrong.
I'm not saying that you're wrong about who gets to play who, but they don't measure it on fair. They measure it on money. You know that as well as I do.
Yeah.
Your argument is a different argument. Let's be clear here. And I don't disagree with you. I'm just saying I know how the committee works. I know how, especially the bowls work. The only thing they ever cared about was getting 1 versus 2 in the BCS era, and then the highest dollar for everybody else. They cared zero about anything else. That was it. So that's kind of the continuation of that, but we have 12 instead of 2.
Yeah, I was glad they didn't drop Penn State too far.
They played pretty well. I mean, they had.
I thought they played great.
But
that Oregon defense, that Oregon defense is no joke. Absolutely, they have got NFL guys littered all over that side of the ball, especially up front. That Penn State offensive line manhandled the Oregon front four. It was not. They ran for 292 yards. That was more than the previous 3 opponents combined had run for against the Oregon defense. And Penn State went for 292 on the ground. I was really impressed. And so I'm glad that they were able to get a home playoff game. But if you're Ohio State, you have to be looking around going, wait a minute. You get SMU, who's a good team. I don't think as good as Tennessee. I don't think they've had as impressive of a season. I mean, Tennessee's loss at Arkansas is certainly not spectacular, but if you ask me who would I rather play at home, SMU or Tennessee, I'd rather play SMU. Penn State gets that draw. Ohio State gets Tennessee, but Ohio State won at Penn State in the regular season. It's a predicament. It's a predicament when you have these conference championship games.
Well, Ohio State not only lost to Michigan, the way they lost and how horrific they were on offense just killed them. They're lucky to be playing a home playoff game because they scored 10 points in that game. So they were just kind of forgotten about this weekend. Like they didn't even exist, which is bizarre on conference championship weekend. When's the last time they weren't in the Big Ten championship game? I don't remember what year it was. So
I think it was last year.
Wait a minute. Did they not make it last year?
Yeah, because it's been Michigan. Because remember there were divisions.
Oh, that's right.
They've had the divisions. So Michigan smoked Iowa and Purdue the last 2 seasons of the Big Ten championship game. But I understand the point you're making. Is it strange?
Yeah, Ohio State should be in it,
right?
Especially in a year there's no divisions. They got zero reason not to make it because they have the most talented roster, arguably in college football. And I think they were penalized for not even sniffing their potential.
They weren't. Not even close. The ceiling of Ohio State is still in there. That football team exists.
That's why the playoffs so wild and it's so entertaining.
What we learned about Ohio State is their floor is a lot lower than we thought.
What did we say earlier in the show? They value consistency. Where's Ohio State? 8th. Penn State.
Been more consistent.
Yep. That is something I think we can take away moving forward. Now, every year the committee is a little different. Granted, but at the same time, I would imagine that that's probably something that's going to be seen moving forward.
Okay, here's the next problem, Brian, and I think you're going to agree with me on this one. Automatic bids resulting in buys for conference champions, freaking ridiculous. I mean, if you want to have an automatic bid, like you win a conference championship, you're one of the 5 highest, you get into the playoff, fine. I've got no problem with that. In no world should Boise State number 1 be ranked ahead of Arizona State. I think that's absolutely ridiculous. And second of all, the idea that you have a Boise State or even an Arizona State getting a bye over some other teams, I just don't agree with the auto bid structure that has been in place. I think auto bids across the board are terrible. Conference championships should be an opportunity to bolster your resume and how you are viewed by the committee. It should not automatically lock you into anything because I think these conferences are indeed closer competition-wise than they have been in the last couple of seasons, but that doesn't mean that they are on the same level. It doesn't mean every schedule for a conference champion is created the same way because it is absolutely not. I think that's the second thing that I look at and go, this has just got to go.
I know I discussed this with you off air the other day, but they're trying to do everything they can. Again, it's advertising and dollars. They want every region of the country not only to be represented, but towards the top. They don't want to tick off anybody. They want all the fans from everywhere to be happy. You can't do it and get the right teams in the top.
Just be happy with being in the playoff.
Well, I don't know. It's hard to explain, but living in different parts of the country, everybody's got a different opinion about it. But again, you can't, no offense to Boise, but like this is a stat that I pulled up. They came in 120th in the nation this year in passing plays allowed of 20 or more yards. They gave up 47. Texas gave up less than half of that, 22. Indiana, 22. Like Tennessee, 30. You can't give up those kind of passing plays and have a defense that I'm going to expect you to do well in big games. I just don't think Boise State's one of the top 12 teams, but because they're worried about getting sued, antitrust, that's the one I'll let the committee off the hook for letting them in, but giving them a bye?
Ridiculous. Ridiculous.
That's the separation. I completely agreed. I put up a post earlier today about this. You can't have those kinds of teams. Like Georgia's a weird situation. We can get into that too, because it's obvious that Carson Beck is not even remotely healthy. I think his season is done. That's my guess. His arm was dangling as he walked out onto the field last night for that last play. That's unfortunate. I hope I'm wrong, but they still get the 2 seed too. Like there's a lot of weird stuff that can happen, and that one's kind of an oddity, but you can't tell me that Boise State should be there at all. I mean, there's just no way I'm buying that. And Arizona State, like they had a good year.
They had an awesome year.
But are they the 4th best team in college football?
No, they're the fourth. They're the fourth seed. They don't have the fourth best
That's what I mean.
resume.
They're not. Where would you rank them? Just straight up out of the 12, where would you put them? Somewhere between
Probably,
8 and 12, I assume.
yeah. I wasn't going to go any lower than 12, and I was not going to go higher than. I probably would land on 9 because I one thing you have to consider with regards to quarterbacks and hypotheticals, which we all love talking about in college football, of course,
That is true.
is Arizona State had one of their 2 losses come without their starting quarterback. So
Yeah, the Cincinnati game, wasn't it?
yeah, the Cincinnati game, Jeff Sims started, but with Sam Levitt back there, they have 1 loss, and it's a fine loss on the road against 8-4 Texas Tech. That's the only time that they lost all season. They ran through the best of the Big 12. They just blasted Iowa State. So I'd absolutely have them as a top 10 team in the country. And Kenny Dillingham was I guess this is what coaches do now, is you just go on Twitter and lobby for your school. And like, if I'm a fan base, yeah, that's what I'd want to see. I'd want my coach out there fighting for school and trying to make every positive perception of the program that you can. But yeah, I'd probably have Arizona State in the 8 to 12 sort of range. Like, I put them on par with Indiana. I think those 2 programs right now are very, very similar. I think you put them on the same field, it's a highly competitive football game. But hypotheticals also don't mean a lot to me, because hypothetically, Ole Miss beats Kentucky. Hypothetically, Bama beats Vandy. Hypothetically, Bama beats Oklahoma, and so on, and so on, and so on. So, yeah, the reseeding and the auto bids, I
The
can't
second
get
one will
behind.
get fixed. The first one I don't see.
Yeah,